Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Avi. I'm graduating with a master's in bioethics from Columbia University, and today I'll be presenting my thesis topic, which is finding solace in the air we breathe, and through interventions in housing, the neighborhood, and built environment in the context of air pollution and childhood asthma, we can improve health outcomes for children in the United States instead of just broad investments into the healthcare system itself. And my inspiration from the topic came from my interest in social justice, the social determinants of health, the environment, urban health and green spaces, and climate change. And the way I organized this presentation was how I organized my thesis through this table of contents, and I divided it into 5 different sections. So the first section is background context and historical perspectives about the social determinants of health and Healthy People 2030. The second section is air pollution, childhood asthma, and poor health outcomes for children living in the United States. The third section is guiding the discussion about childhood asthma in the United States. The fourth section is about actions to address air pollution and childhood asthma in the United States. And the fifth section is the culminating remarks. So part of my abstract for the thesis, the reason why I wanted to choose childhood is because a lot of children are vulnerable to air pollution. They don't have much decision making in terms of where they live and the capacity to move. And after acknowledging the impact of investments in housing in the built environment, I wanted to go through a broad framework of actions and interventions designed to address air pollution and childhood asthma in the United States while offering suggestions for improvements. Okay, first section. So even though the economic repercussions of sickness in the United States are visible, policymakers find it complex and difficult to address these issues, all impacted by the social determinants of health, which are the conditions in which we are born, live, work, and play. And these are grouped into 5 domains, as you see over here. And empirical research already shows the magnitude of the social determinants of health and socioeconomic determinants of health for individuals, families, and communities and society at large. Specifically for housing, there's racial and ethnic disparities in exposure to air pollution. There's also lack of repair in housing, and there's lead, dust, mold, and all of that precipitating asthma in children. And then the neighborhood and built environment is the excuse me, is the conditions of the areas in which people live, including green spaces, parks, highways, factories, closeness to major transportation hubs. Second section. Globally, over 6,000 children under the age of 5 die from diseases caused by air pollution, indoor and outdoor. And unless action is taken, outdoor air pollution will be the leading cause of environmental related child death by 2050. And children are especially vulnerable to air pollution because their lungs are still developing, and in utero, these toxins cross the placental barrier when the mom is exposed to a lot of particulate matter. And they have higher rates of miscarriage, preterm delivery, lower birth weight, and developmental delays. And events in early life that affect the developing lungs include prematurity, newborn respiratory distress syndrome, and exposure to smoke. Okay. And then this graph is particularly interesting. It was a study recently published by The Gothamist on April 2023, talking about the ozone exposure in New York City. So researchers actually went through all 5 boroughs, and they took air sampling devices between 2009 to 2021, and they analyzed those samples. And PM 2.5 is particulate matter, and it's the size of a width of a tiny hair. And as you can see here near Morningside, our wonderful campus here, the concentration is 6.8 micrograms per cubic meter, which measures the amount of this particular matter that's concentrated in the air. And as we notice here in Hunts Point and Longwood, it's 7.3. The highest concentration is in the South Bronx because there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of highways, there's a lot of factories, and that's why the South Bronx has the highest rates of asthma, as we know. And then Riverdale and Fieldston actually has 6.5. It's actually one of the best places to live in terms of air pollution because you have Inwood Park, you have Van Cortlandt, you have Riverside, Fort Tryon. So you have all that park, all those parks and all those green spaces that clean the air. Third section. So air pollution is particularly dangerous for children because it causes inflammation in the smaller airways. It causes airway obstruction and decreases gas exchange, which is part of the pathophysiology of asthma, which leads to inflammation and tightening of the muscles. And it impedes the lungs from filtering any bacteria, so children are more likely to get respiratory infections. And common triggers that exacerbate asthma are viral infections, dust, smoke, fumes, dander, etc. And as a result from the overwhelming presence of daily and chronic triggers from living in poor housing environments, children are frequently going to the ED for acute asthma exacerbations and hospitalizations. During 2019, asthma accounted for 5 million doctor's office visits and 2 million emergency department visits in the US alone. And between 2008 to 2013, the annual economic cost of the US just for air pollution and asthma exacerbations was 82 billion. That's a huge number. And then 3 billion in losses because of missed work and school days, and 30 billion from asthma-related mortality. And then they actually did a study where they found that medical costs for people with asthma was $4,000 higher per person as compared to people who don't have asthma. And then the main section of my thesis. So with interventions through housing, the neighborhood, and built environment, one of the reasons that the US has the highest rates of spending on healthcare is because we don't invest enough in the social determinants of health. We don't invest in our public housing and environmental health hazards. And there was a study called Social Risk Interventions and Healthcare Utilization for Pediatric Asthma. And it found that asthma-related healthcare utilization among children correlates with the social determinants of health. And this study went on to do a meta-analysis of 40 different studies using PubMed, Scopus, and Sinol. And they used full-text articles between 2008 to 2021. And the interventions that they found were the most effective was actually having community health workers and nurses going into the houses of these students and these children in order to give them information to decrease whatever's causing asthma inside their household, whether that be lead or smoke or pests or having animals or dust mites. And the second section talks about collaboration from multiple sectors. Support is needed from everybody. It's needed from the environment, from industry and manufacturing, from governments, from public health policy officials. We also need evidence-based practice, medical professionals, and families in education and healthcare to all collaborate. And this third section here talks about healthy urban design and urban planning. If you plant more trees in areas where it's concentrated with air pollution, you find that it decreases the rates of asthma because children are breathing in healthier air. And part of the designing and manufacturing is if you're building a school or a playground, make sure it's not close to any toxic waste facilities because the children are getting impacted by that. And also by using cost of illness literature, you can use that as a tool to actually see how much you're spending on healthcare per person and how that can actually be reduced if you're investing in the social determinants of health in housing, the neighborhood, and built environments. And culminating remarks. So bioethics calls on us to have compassion through shared aspects of our communities and through our lived experiences, the core curriculum, and empirical evidence. We find that investing in the social determinants of health impacts individuals, families, and their communities. A successful society prioritizes the well-being of its citizens, emphasizing the bioethical principle of beneficence. The moral determinants of health answers why we should care through social justice. And a healthier society enables people to live a life aligned with their autonomy, and they can meaningfully engage, participate, and contribute within society. And the expansions of human capabilities are the real freedoms that people have. That's the ultimate goal of public health, to make sure that people are healthy and they're functioning as they can. And the results from all these studies. The benefits of reducing air pollution extend well beyond child health, as actions and investments that reduce air pollution and childhood asthma also lower healthcare expenditures, improve productivity within society, and also combat climate change. So it's good morally, economically, and for our planet as well. And finding solace in the air we breathe translates into millions of saved lives and healthier lives, both for our children and for future generations. And following the principle of intergenerational equality, we have to leave the world habitable for the next generation, for the future that's coming. And what each individual person can do at their full potential is the best repayment that society can have, starting with each breath of fresh air that we take. And on the ending note, I wanted to share a quote. So Professor Kuflik always mentioned that writing the thesis was like writing a well-written chapter in a book, and hopefully I can continue writing more chapters for this book. Thank you.